Good morning, evening, afternoon, night, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, whatever time it is. Welcome to the Don't Unfriend Me Show. My name is Matthew Spear. I am the host of the Don't Unfriend Me Show. It's good to have you here. What are we talking about tonight? DeSantis, Trump, Republicans. Listen, this is really reminiscent of when I was a kid. I remember my first election, 1992. It was Ross Perot, George Bush Sr., and Bill Clinton. And we had a choice to make as a country. And Ross Perot split the vote. And everyone knew Bill Clinton was going to win because Ross Perot was polling very heavily. He was in the debates. He did fairly well with that moderate conservative or the moderate liberal. And it was going to siphon votes away from Trump because Clinton was kind of the underdog going into it. You had an incumbent president. You had 4 years. Bill Clinton played the saxophone. He had the swagger and the Kennedy look. But was it enough? Well, without Perot, he wouldn't have won. And I remember going into the polling place in Evergreen, Colorado. We had just recently arrived, and this was my first general election. And as I was walking in, my father stopped, put his hand on my shoulder, and said, "Matthew, who are you voting for?" Now, of course, I could have said, well, I'm not going to tell you that. This is a very private, personal thing. But at 18 years old, you want to impress your father, but you also want to rebel, healthy rebellion, and also a little bit of appeasement. And instead of giving him the answer that he wanted, I gave him the answer that I felt was the best one that I could muster. I said, I'm voting for Ross Perot. And he looked at me and said, you're handing the ticket to Bill Clinton. You're giving it to Bill Clinton. He's like, I don't care what you do, but for the rest of the vote, just vote down ticket. And I didn't like the comment. It bothered me. It's my vote. I'll decide who I want to vote for. And darn it, Ross Perot is for the people, just like Bernie Sanders is for the people, or Jill Stein's for the people, or Nader's for the people, or Brown is for the people, or in this case, RFK Jr. is for the people. There's always that candidate. Some of them do very well. Ross Perot did, Jill Stein did, and I imagine RFK will also pull some votes as well, as I will anticipate that he runs as a libertarian or down the center. He really is more of that than a Democrat anyway. But the interesting thing is I wanted to please my father. So I said, okay, Dad, I'll vote down Republican ticket. And as I went into the booth, my hand was stayed. And I simply selected and bubbled in Ross Perot and voted down Republican the rest of the ticket because I'm a Republican. But I did not love Bush. And I felt that Bill Clinton was not necessarily a danger, but I just didn't find him to be someone who I could relate with politically because I've always been into politics and I've always been a conservative. But Ross Perot was a change agent. He was the person that was a breath of fresh air. He was going to alter the mundane. He talked about fiscal responsibility. He talked about ceasing endless wars. He talked about bringing people to the home front. He sounded like a Rand Paul or a Ron Paul, but a little bit of a funnier disposition. So I voted for him. And as I left the polling station, my father came up and exited his and put his arm on my shoulder and said, so Maddie, who'd you vote for? And I said, George Bush. I learned early in life that placating is sometimes better than confrontation. And although not true anymore, and certainly something that I don't subscribe to, I believe confrontation is a wonderful way to get to the root of a problem and also to build relationships and bridges with people if the relationship can stand it. If the foundation is strong, it can take the tension. And if it's not, it will simply falter, and that was probably for the best. Why do I bring this up? Because there are bones of contention in today's election. In the 2024 election, there is a splintering of the conservative movement, the Republican movement, between Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump. And it's contentious. And I advised against it. And the reason I did is because I knew this would happen. Not only would we tear down Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis and all other conservatives that want to move forward in 2024, we essentially tarnish the bench for all future elections. There's a simple truth. The Democrats are going through this too. They have an unpopular incumbent in Joe Biden. His numbers are abysmal. His approval rating is abysmal. And no president has been reelected with his approval numbers. And I don't anticipate that to happen again. A lot of people think that Michelle Obama is going to run, that Governor Newsom is waiting in the wings to take over for Joe Biden. And, well, have Biden expeditiously move from the ticket. Now, these things are all possible. And of course, anything can happen on any given Sunday. And on a long enough timeline, there are varying probabilities that can take place. But the Democratic Party would be stupid to dethrone a incumbent president. It is the one single-handedly the biggest home court advantage that any candidate has, number one. But this splintering is there. And most assuredly, Ron DeSantis is in the wings from the RNC because in case Donald Trump's legal troubles do catch up to him, and if there is a motion to remove him from being able to run, or he is indicted, or he sees jail time, or all the possible things that could happen, or if everything continues and he's Teflon Don and gets away with all the things that they say he did that he actually didn't do, whatever that outcome would be, Ron DeSantis is there to clean up on aisle 3. And most assuredly, Newsom is also shadowing Joe Biden's entire routine and where he goes and where he visits, because in case something happens to Biden, or if he decides not to run or can't run, Newsom is there to pick up and clean up on aisle 3, now that we understand that. However, I think it's important to understand that it's not a mutually exclusive decision to say Biden, to say RFK, to say Trump, to say DeSantis, because we don't know who's going to be on the ticket. And we haven't really even seen the game be played. This is preseason, folks. This isn't the big game. It's not even the Super Bowl yet. We haven't even played a regular season game. We have to have the debates. We have to hear the policy platforms. Things will change. The world change. Events change. And how these candidates respond to it, running for president, is clear indicators to how they will act if they get the nomination and win the presidency. Now, I'm witnessing on the right a teardown. Trump supporters are going after DeSantis supporters, and DeSantis supporters are going after Trump supporters. And when I say it's vile and toxic, I absolutely mean it's vile and toxic. People photoshopping Melania photos, having Donald Trump show up as bald, having him in jail in orange jumpsuits, having DeSantis have a nipple in his mouth, having his face have certain fecal matter on it from being a butt kisser, going after his wife, that the cancer that she had, the breast cancer, just a few months back, was all a ploy. Folks, this stuff is not needed. The mudslinging is usually done by the candidates, and to see these people like we're in some sort of sporting event, and that somehow you can break down a person to their lowest common denominator and there aren't consequences to that is repulsive and disgusting. I've had amazing moments covering Trump over the last 6.5 years, and I will tell you there are amazing things that he has done from a policy perspective. I will always appreciate him as a Republican, a true Republican since Reagan. I will always appreciate what he's done for veterans, and I think that he was one of the best policy-based presidents we've had, from foreign matters to national and state matters, and I truly will stand by Donald Trump's presidency. But I can't necessarily condone the way he's acted over the last 2.5 years. And I believe that these constant litigations, whether they're trumped up, no pun intended, by the left or not, how he responds to them and how he handles them puts him in more trouble than it does him good. This has turned me off and soured me on Donald Trump just a little bit. Now, does that mean that I won't vote for him if he's on the ticket? Of course not. But I can give you the positive and I can give you the negative. And I believe Trump has a responsibility to run for president. Stop playing the games. Get involved in the debates. Get out there and get known. Do whatever you can to earn more than the base, because the base won't be enough. Because no matter what the polls say, every single Democrat will vote for Biden or whoever's on the ticket just so they don't have a vote for Trump. Now, on the other hand, you have Ron DeSantis. 6 months ago, Ron DeSantis was the gleaming eye in the sky. Everybody loved him. They wanted him to be the vice president. There were signs everywhere in people's heads of Trump DeSantis 2024. And then what happened? Ron DeSantis decided to run for president. And now disloyalty. It's amazing. Vivek Ramaswamy, RFK, Rick Scott, Nikki Haley. None of them are traitors to Trump, and they're running. Why Ron DeSantis? Why is Ron DeSantis a traitor? There's nothing that says that a former president running for president again can't have contenders. He's not the incumbent president. He's not a nominee of the Republican Party because we haven't had that yet. We haven't had the convention. There's no reason. In fact, everyone should be glad that there is a debate in this country. And there will be a debate in this country if Donald Trump shows up to show these other candidates who really, truly deserves a presidency. And I believe Donald Trump will win that debate if he actually shows up. But I don't believe tearing down Ron DeSantis is necessary. I don't think they're mutually exclusive things. I don't think you need to tear down Trump in order to be a DeSantis fan. And if you're a DeSantis fan, you have to tear down Trump. Because you shouldn't be a fan of DeSantis. You shouldn't be a fan of Trump. You should empower them because they will represent the constituency. They will represent the American people. That is their job. Their job isn't to be popular. It's not to be well-liked. It's not to have the best looks. It's not to have the coolest suit. Because let's face it, if that was the case, then Nikki Haley would win. We have an obligation to hear the debate. We have an obligation to listen to the candidates because these are our choices and there are a plethora of them. There needs to be a vetting process and a step-down process here that we can move quickly through these candidates because ultimately when we do have a debate, everybody's going to get 10 seconds. You need to know and you need to understand that when the dust settles, it's going to be Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump. You can pretty much guarantee that. Now, there's going to be uppers and downers, and people are going to move in the polls, but ultimately, that's really what it looks like right now. You can either come to grips with that, or you can continue to be upset. There was a video that came out that I thought was very interesting about Ron DeSantis. And I thought it was one of the best things I've heard from a constituent in my illustrious political career of watching and not necessarily putting my hat in the big game. This lady who spoke to Ron DeSantis, she's my fan. These are the people that I speak to every night. And I know this because I talk to them outside of this one-way communique, through text, sometimes through phone, and I listen to them and they all feel this way. Everybody I know who's a Trump supporter feels this way. Some will admit it and some won't. I want you to listen to her and I want you to see if you can compare the way you think to her. Are there things you have in common? Do you believe this is real? Some people are saying she's a paid shill for Ron DeSantis. And that's common with people who are incapable of understanding that humans have feelings. If you're one of the people who believe that Donald Trump can do no good and only does wrong, you're just as bad as the people think that he can do no wrong and only does good. And the same thing holds true for Ron DeSantis, that he is pure as driven snow, yet doesn't have tire marks underneath a layer. You have to understand is that this isn't a sports team. It's not that one person says something wrong and therefore you abandon them, because if that was the truth, then you would abandon Trump over vaccines or bump stocks, or you would hit after DeSantis for Medicare and Social Security. You have to take the candidate as a whole with all their parts, not just one stance, because if you're looking for a single issue president, you're not going to find one. Because in today's political climate, it's too difficult to do that. So you have to take the good with the bad. You have to have judgment, logical deduction on who will represent you the best. This video is one of the best I've seen. Tell me what you think after giving it a watch.
I was invited to come today to listen to you by this gentleman, Representative Moss. I'm a very hardcore Trump supporter, but I know he made me stop and think a minute, because my love for President Trump comes from all the despair, all the things that he's been through, has served as our President of the United States, and he did a good job. But all the things, I'm thinking more with my heart and my sorrow and my love for him and for this country. But now this is the most important vote that we're going to have, and I have to think more with my mind and what's best for this country. And you did an excellent job, and I certainly appreciate it.
God bless you. Thank you. And I appreciate that. And, I agree with you. I appreciate what President Trump did. How they treated him with things like Russia collusion was a disgrace. And he was treated wrong. He was treated in ways that were unconstitutional. But here's the thing. The question for us now is, what are we going to do about it? And we need to end the weaponization of government. I will get that done. It's not about me, it's about you. It's about me standing up for you and standing up for this Constitution and restoring this country to what the Founding Fathers envisioned, and we will get it done. We will be focused, we will be disciplined, and we will make it happen.
Now, the interesting thing is that I will be called a rhino for showing that, a disloyal Trump supporter. And I don't care. I've never cared. I'm not in it for Trump. I'm not in it for DeSantis. I'm not in it for the Republican Party or the Democratic Party or independents or oligarchs or theocracy or any ideology that you want to play it. I'm in it for my family. I'm in it for me, and I'm in it for my fellow citizen. I really don't care who the candidate is, as long as that candidate is the best version of what I would aspire to be. And if they're not, then they're not getting my vote. The truth of the matter is this. If you listen to that and you have a negative thought, then the negative thought is centered around the constituent and not DeSantis, because that constituent spoke 80% of the time and was more powerful than just about anything I've heard, because she gave you a State of the Union, a nutshell on how most Trump supporters are feeling. They're coming to the harsh reality that Donald Trump doesn't have a path to 270. That you can look at the electorate, and these swing states that went in 2020 have not switched. They have not moved, and they have stayed with the predictive pathway that they did from 2020, 2022, and it looks like they'll vote the same way in 2024. We have to ask ourselves a question. Has Donald Trump moved the needle in order to garner these votes for these states? And right now, we're not seeing that. So the question is, do you want to see Donald Trump run and lose, or do you want to see a Republican that can win? Only you can answer that, and I'm not going to tell you what to do. What I'm going to try to do is look at you and turn you my way like my dad should have and say the following. I have my opinions. My opinions are important to me, but those opinions may not be important to you. You may not like who I vote for. You may not like what I say. You may not like my politics, but this in lies the dilemma in America, is we don't have to agree. What you need to do is go in there and you need to vote your conscience, something that is not said anymore. We're supposed to vote our pocketbook. We're supposed to vote our party colors. We're supposed to vote our animal, whether that be an elephant or a Democrat or something in between that looks like a porcupine and some roadkill armadillo. But that's not the way it should be. We should vote who speaks to us, and we should never have to defend that against anybody. It doesn't matter whether you're a Biden supporter or a Trump supporter, DeSantis supporter, or anyone's supporter. You vote for who you vote for, and you own that vote. It's nobody else's. Don't let people tell you what to do. Decide what you want to do. And if you're a DeSantis supporter, then great. Tell me why. If you're a Trump supporter, do the same. But don't tell me why I shouldn't do what I think is best for me and my country, because that is my decision alone and not yours. I don't expect you to do that to me, and I will never do it to you. Interesting conversation. Tell me what you think below, whether I'm crazy. I'm sure I'm going to see Trump 24, DeSantis 24, and I would encourage you, please, do something a little more than that. Add to the conversation, please. Don't detract from it. We know you're Trump 24. Why are you Trump 24? Why do you think he can win? Tell me about the path to success. Which states do you think will flip? Michigan, Wisconsin, Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, Georgia, Pennsylvania. Ohio's not looking too good. Do you think it's going to go blue, or do you think it's going to go red? What do you think about the charges that are coming up? What do you think about DeSantis and some of the donations that are extremely large and his grassroots campaign isn't? Does that make him a institutional candidate, or does it just make him that he hasn't sold himself to the Trump supporters yet? These are all great questions that you need to answer, because you have a decision to make. Make it a good one, America. Our futures are depending on it. Oh, and one more thing to contradict the entire show, don't vote for Biden. My name is Matthew Spear. I am the host of Don't Unfriend Me. Good to have you here in the house. Please do me a favor. Stop by the Don't Unfriend Me show at thedumshow.com. You can buy cool shirts and hats and coffee and all that. Please do. I saved it to the end so you don't have to get all upset that I'm selling merchandise. Save 10% by using code DUM10, and it will give 10% back to veterans. I do that every single year and give it to the Travis Manion Foundation. Thanks so much for watching the Don't Unfriend Me show. I will see you tonight at 8 o'clock live. God bless, and I will go out like I always do with the Veteran Crisis Hotline. Good night, good morning, or good afternoon.
I'm David Boreanaz with the Cast of SEAL team, and we have an important message for returning vets.
We want you to know if you're struggling to cope, there's help and it's just a phone call away.
The Veterans Crisis Line is staffed with experienced professionals who know your struggles.
There's no greater sacrifice in service to our country. We're able to enjoy our freedoms because of it.
Your service is important, you are important.
For vets and their families, the Veterans Crisis Line is here to help 24 hours a day. Please call